Hello and welcome back to Warhammer Wednesday here on Paladin Gaming. I am fresh back from the Chaos Storm Grand Tournament, and I'm a little hoarse from having to talk over a loud tournament hall all weekend, or at least that's what I hope it is. So here we're going to go over the army I took to the tournament. It's fairly straightforward, artillery-heavy Imperial Guard force. I have 3 squads of it, in 2 detachments. First, I have 3 squads of infantry, each with a plasma gun and autocannon. A tank commander with an executioner plasma cannon, with an executioner Lehman Russ and 2 plasma cannons in his sponsons. The original and best battle tank, battle cannon, and 3 heavy bolters. Commissar with a power sword, Primaris Psyker, knowing Night Shroud and Mental Fortitude. Company commander is the Warlord with the Grand Strategist Warlord trait, no special war gear. An Astropath, knowing Psychic Barrier. I use my Psykers for buffing purposes. A squad of 3 Bulgrins with Bulgrin Mauls and Brute Shields for line disruption and general melee purpose. A Manticore, a tank ace with full payload, so the rockets do flat 3 damage. A squadron of basilisks to round out the first detachment. These are all the first detachment is Cadian, so they reroll 1s to hit when they don't move. Second detachment was for backline interference and scoring engage on all fronts. 2 Valkyries. The first Valkyrie carries a Tempester Prime and 2 identical squads of Tempestus Scions, represented by these Kasserkin, each carrying 2 plasma guns. And the other one, carrying a squad of Kasserkin with 2 Meltaguns, a Tempestus Command Squad with hotshot volley guns. As you might be able to see, I have I'm not quite done painting these guys, but I have put Cadian helmeted heads on them to make Kasserkin. And a Lord Commissar with a Power Fist, because you never know what kind of melee trouble they're going to wind up in when you drop in Melta range. So with that, so that's the models, and we will go over to the computer and go over my list and the lists of everyone I played.
Alright, so here we are in Battlescribe with the lists. We're going to start with mine because they're just to go over a text representation of the list, and because there's a couple things I forgot when going over the models. First thing, my company commander has the Relic of Lost Cadia. That was my relic, and I, just like while describing on the models, I forgot it almost every round of the tournament. So scroll down through here so you can see everything. And in the Tempestus detachment, I forgot to say that I ran them as 55th Capic Eagles, which lets the infantry ignore the heavy weapons penalty, so the command squad can run around with those hotshot volley guns all they want, and the gives them +1 to hit on the turn they get out of a transport. Yeah, like that says there. So when they get out of the Valkyries, they're hitting on 2+, and in the case of the plasma gun squads, rerolling 1s because they rode around with the Tempester Prime, who I took Progeny of Conflict and gave him the Master of Command Warlord trait, so you give orders to both of them. Anyway, so we will go to my opponent's list, starting with round 1. This is a Chaos Soup list with a Chaos Undivided Demons detachment and an Emperor's Children patrol. So his Warlord was a Lord of Change, exalted with, all of this stuff. I don't even know what half of it does. A Poxbringer with Miasma of Pestilence, and the Changeling with Gaze of Fate. And the troop slot, Horrors, and Nurglings. Those Nurglings were the bane of my existence. And Beasts of Nurgle and Elites. With Furies and Screamers and Fast Attack to run around and be annoying. And the Chaos Space Marines detachment, a Dark Apostle, a sorcerer with delightful agonies and warp time, and a 15 marine unit of noise marines with sonic blasters and blastmasters, and a couple of dark disciples. I don't even know what purpose they serve. They didn't seem to do much, and then I shot them to death. So his general plan was to infiltrate the Nurglings onto objectives behind cover, behind the line of sight blockers on the midfield objectives. And I just couldn't dislodge them. Like, they disgustingly resilient is disgustingly resilient. They shrugged off all the artillery I could afford to drop on them. The Noise Marines moved up the center of the board and started blasting away at my lines. So I killed them quickly with my tank commander. But the Beasts of Nurgle followed that up, and they just would not die fast enough. I got tied up in melee and just couldn't establish objective control. I did score on engage on all fronts with the Valkyries and Stormtroopers, but they couldn't do enough damage. The Nurgle Demons aren't the only thing disgustingly resilient. The Lord of Change just bounced everything I could throw at him off of his invulnerable. So that was round 1, and I lost this game like 97-42 or something like that. I should have put the scores in front of me when I started this video, but I'll have the actual scores in the description, in the video description down below. Round 2, I came up against Death Guard. Excuse me, the Wretched Plague Company. I talked myself hoarse at the tournament. That's what you're hearing. With a Lord of Contagion, a Malignant Plague Caster, Plague Marines, and 19 zombie blobs of Poxwalkers in the troop slot. A 10 model unit of Blightlord Terminators with a Plague Surgeon and a Tallyman. And then he rounded out the list with 2 Feated Bloat Drones and 3 Plague Burst Crawlers. I took engage on all fronts because that's what the Valkyries do. And that's what my plan is with the Valkyries, and bring it down because I knew I would have to kill those Plague Burst Crawlers anyway, and I figured I might as well get points for it. So I did kill all of these vehicles in a furious artillery duel, but he took his. I got second turn. I got second turn in the first game too. I got second turn, and he, recognizing my engage on all fronts plan, immediately dumped all his firepower into killing one of the Valkyries. So I couldn't drop as much on his backfield objectives, and it took me more work to get engaged on all fronts because I had to drop the surviving Valkyrie's passengers in one quarter and then fly the Valkyrie into another, so it took longer to get there, and then he could just kill the Scions. But this game, the score improved. I held him to 85 points, and I scored 45. In the last couple of turns, the Terminators were what clinched it. I killed all the Plague Burst Crawlers and the Bloat Drones, but those Terminators came down out of Deep Strike and multi-charged my center. I threw everything into them, trying to keep them off the artillery, to include my Commissar with his power sword, who actually managed to kill a Terminator. But while that was happening, the infantry squad that I had locking down my left flank advanced up and tried to dislodge the Poxwalkers that were on the left side, the objective on my left in the midfield. The mission was battle line, so there were only 4 objectives, and they did the Emperor's work trying, but couldn't pull it out. Poxwalkers get back up faster than Guardsmen can kill them. So that was round 2. Round 3, played against Necrons, and you can see that Battlescribe's throwing errors here. He took the Silent King, but also used Hand of the Pharaon on his Overlord, which you can't do. But that aside, he had the Silent King, an Overlord with Hand of the Pharaon, Rarefied Nobility. This whole thing's Nihilect attachments. A Technomancer with the Veil of Darkness. 3 units of Necron Warriors. His list said that 10 Necron Warriors with 5 Gauss Reapers, so I guess that means the other 5 had Gauss Flayers. It didn't actually say, and it didn't seem to really make a difference. So the Catan Shard of the Nightbringer, Plasmacytes, Lich Guard, a unit of Scorpec Destroyers, 2 Kinetic Scarab Swarms, and rounded out with a Doom Scythe. I got first turn this game, and went immediately for Engage on All Fronts. This was Surround and Destroy, I think. It's one of the table quarter deployments. I'll have the missions we played and the scores in the video description. But it was table quarter deployments, so I walked. I advanced guardsmen into one of the table quarters we didn't deploy in, and then flew Valkyries into the other 2, his deployment zone and the one across from him that wasn't deployed. That wasn't a deployment zone, and ran the Bulgrins after the second one with the plan to get that objective. And he used the Technomancer. Well, first thing he did was fly the Doom Scythe right into my deployment zone and blow up the Manticore, which was the right move because that thing will you don't want that firing off its second, third, and fourth rockets if you can help it. But then I killed the Doom Scythe so that nonsense would stop. And he didn't really have anything else that could get to my Basilisks. He used the Veil of Darkness to teleport the Technomancer and one of the units of Warriors towards the objective in the table quarter across from him that I'd run the Bulgrins and the Valkyrie with the Plasma Scions towards. Supremely confident that force could take whatever was going to come at that objective. He was wrong. Between 2 squads of Plasma Gun Scions and the Bulgrins, I handily wiped the Necron Warriors off of, and the he also brought a swarm of Scarabs out of reserve onto that objective, but I handily took care of that and was in firm possession of that table quarter for the rest of the game. On the other side of the table, I made the mistake of dropping the Meltagun squad at the Nightbringer, forgetting that he has the per phase damage limitation rule, so you can only take 3 damage from all those Meltaguns. So they were cleaned up pretty handily, but after that I dropped the Lord Commissar and the command squad into a woods towards the center of the table on his table side, which he forgot about to his detriment, because it wasn't just the illegal list. He took the Purge the Vermin Necron secondary objective, which is the polar opposite of Engage on All Fronts. He gets points for making sure I'm not in table quarters, while I get points for making sure I am. I scored 14 points on Engage on All Fronts. I was tracking my objectives. He did not track his objectives, got to the end of the game and tried to say he had maxed Purge the Vermin, which is not possible. He did get some points on it because Purge the Vermin excludes aircraft, but because the Lord Commissar was in his table half, he did not, in fact, have that entire half of the table clear all game, which is what he would have had to do to max it. So long story short, I won this game 80-79. He was arguing for points that I'm not sure he actually got, but because even if he got everything he wanted, he still wasn't going to be ahead, I let him have it. Not realizing that the list was illegal. But, so that was my first victory, and it was super close. So next day, I played against this here melee Order of the Bloody Rose Sisters of Battle detachment with Inquisitor Kotias. So a Canis and Palatine, both with Saint in the making, to get Warlord traits because their actual Warlord was Morven Val. Paid the taxes with 3 minimum Battle Sister squads, and then went all in on Rapincia. 2 squads on Rapincia and Zephyrim. Also had a unit of Mortifiers and a Retributor squad and 2 Rhinos to round it out. 2 of these squads of Rapincia were in the Rhinos, and the Retributors, the Mortifiers, the Zephyrim, and the 3rd squad of Rapincia were all in Strategic Reserve. On the first round, I did an awful lot of damage, blew up both Rhinos, killed a whole bunch of the Rapincia that came out, seized objectives in his backfield, and just generally was a real pain in the rear. But then turn 2 came around, and all of this came in from reserve 9 inches from my lines. The Retributors blew up my battle tank straight off, and then I was just multi-engaged on both flanks for the rest of the game. My Basilisks were tied up for most of the game, and the Manticore was deployed in the center behind some containers, so you couldn't get to them right away, but that wasn't enough to make the difference. I lost this game pretty hard. And finally, the last round against Ultramarines. Marnius Calgar was the Warlord, with backed up by Primaris Lieutenant, and he had a 10 Marine Heavy Intercessor squad, and then 2 regular Intercessor squads, 1-9 and 1-10. Primaris Apothecary, Chief Apothecary with Selfless Healer, because that's what you do. 2 Relic Concentric Dreadnoughts with Volkite Culverins. A maximum squad of Plasma Exterminator Inceptors, and a 6 Marine squad of Eradicators with Melta Rifles. I got the first turn and put everything I had into getting rid of those Eradicators, because that terrifies my list. As you might imagine. He kept the Inceptors and one of the squads of Intercessors in Strategic Reserve. And I accidentally forgot to deploy my Bulgrins, so I had to put them in reserve. So I had to retroactively put them in reserve too. And then forgot to deploy them turn 2, which turned out to be fortunate, because at the bottom of 2, he brought in these Inceptors directly on my table edge to try to get around behind the artillery battery and kill the Manticore. So I was able to, on my turn, bring in the Bulgrins straight into engagement with them. But being Ultramarines, they fell back and shot anyway. But it tied them up for a turn. And I won this game 76-74. It was a close-fought game going back and forth. I got early objective control with the Valkyries, but he finally managed to swing into gear and clear them off. And with the help of his reserve Intercessor squad getting onto another objective from one of the neutral battle edges, he got ahead on the primary objective. So I scored 15 points on primary objectives rounds 2 and 3, and he scored 15 points rounds 4 and 5. So we tied on the primary objective at 40 points each. And then it came down to secondaries, and I squeaked it by 2 points. If he'd managed to max Oath of Moment, he would have had it, but he didn't quite. Came up 3 points short. So that was my experience at the tournament, and I've been rushing through this because I know I'm going to lose my voice. So missions and scores will be in the video description. I hope you enjoyed, and next week we will start back on video gaming Warhammer Wednesday with the Winter Assault campaign. So I hope you enjoyed, and have a good week.